This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Happy New Year and welcome to episode 525 of the Yellow Wall Pods. I'm your host, Stefan Botzko, and today we will talk about Pascal Groß and Cole Campbell leaving Borussia Dortmund. What else we will expect to happen in this winter transfer window? We'll see about that. And of course, we will preview Friday's game against Eintracht Frankfurt as Borussia Dortmund start back into action. For that and more, I'm joined by Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. I apologize to you as our editor and all listeners for possible background noise from my radiator because it's very cold in Dortmund and my flat is not well insulated, so I have to have the radiator boiling hot. But other than that, I'm good. How are you, Stefan?
I'm doing well too, even though here in my basement in Philly, it's also not exactly warm and there's no radiator, but I'm wearing a beanie and a very heavy hoodie, and so I should be fine. Also here, also Happy New Year, Matthias Zug. Hello, Matthias. How are you doing? Temperature check, I guess.
Happy New Year. Yeah, it's ironic that sitting in the basement in the frozen north of Wisconsin, it sounds like I'm the warmest out of the bunch of you, even though it's actually not that frozen this week for once, but it was negative 25 just the other week. So, I'll take what I can get.
Ugh. That's Fahrenheit or Celsius?
The Fahrenheit topped out at minus 28 and, the Celsius. But at that temperature, they meet. That's one of those when it gets really cold in Wisconsin, you find out when Celsius and Fahrenheit meet again. And it's around...
Is it minus 42?
No, it gets awfully close in the negative 20s. It can register minus 25 Fahrenheit, and then the Celsius will read, I think, minus 28. So it's just cold, man. It's just cold. It's kind of like you get over 100 degrees. It's like, yeah, it's just hot. It's different degrees of hot at this point.
Look, Matthias, I don't want to point any fingers or put any blame toward, but I know you've lived in many places around the world. I don't know how you chose a place where you literally can't feel your own testicles half the year, but that's your choice, obviously.
It's not half the year. It's two months out of the year, and trust you me, the summers make up for it.
So I must ask though, since you are still relatively fresh as a Wisconsinite, have you become a cheesehead in that time, or are you still true and loyal to the sucky Dallas Cowboys?
Well, true love never dies, no matter how much you try to kill it. But I'll be honest, I never had a hatred for the Packers because they weren't really a rival from a Cowboys perspective. But you can't help but become kind of a Packers fan by living here because the people are just phenomenal people in Wisconsin. They're some of the nicest human beings on the planet. And it's just Packers everywhere. And it's just a natural love. It's not as, I lived outside of Philly for a while, and needless to say, I did not become an Eagles fan. If anything, my hatred for the Eagles grew. And so, yeah, I'd say I root for them. I'm not like a diehard Packers fan or anything like that, but I definitely root for them because I want my neighbors to be happy because they're such incredibly nice people.
Yeah, interpret it as how nice or not nice people in and around Philadelphia are. But anyway, let's get into it. So, I don't know if it was a surprise. I guess to me at least it was that Pascal Groß has left Borussia Dortmund to return to Brighton. I assume the reasoning is very clear that the playing time, I think he had like 600 minutes or so, was not enough for him to feel like he has a good chance to play at the World Cup. So he wanted a change of scenery, and so Pascal Groß is now back at Brighton. I think Dortmund collected a fee of around 2-ish million euros or so. So not too much, but considering that he was also on an expiring deal, I think it's a nice recoup. Lars, what are your thoughts on this and the fact that Dortmund have basically articulated so far that they will not replace him with a new player, but rather in the aggregate that Özcan, for example, will be moved up a little bit in the pecking order?
I mean, they haven't basically stated that. It was verbatim, Niko Kovac, we are not going to do anything in this position, so take it from the horse's mouth, I guess. I was a little surprised, as you were, especially him going back to the Premier League doesn't really make the most sense to me. Obviously, Brighton know him very well, and he's very well regarded there, but his legs seem so completely gone in the Bundesliga that I'm struggling to see how he's going to cut it in England. So I hold my doubts as to whether he's going to represent Germany at the World Cup. I'm pretty sure that ship has sailed pretty far down the river already. My first reaction when I heard about it was more in the vein of maybe this is about his post-playing career. Maybe Brighton have shown him, an opportunity to get into coaching, which is something Pascal Groß definitely wants to pursue. But I don't know. I think from a football perspective for Dortmund, it's a loss that's somewhat easy to swallow because, as you mentioned, he didn't really play too many minutes. He didn't start a single Champions League game this season, for example. There were large spells of, the season so far in which he didn't really feature at all or only played 15, 20 minutes at the end of games. I'm pretty confident that Salih Özcan can take over those duties because, he's physically strong. He can run. He can defend. And I don't think at any point during his time in Dortmund we could, criticize the 1-2 and, mentality of Özcan. It's just the lack of overall ability, I would say. The question is obviously what happens if Joe Bellingham, breaks a leg or whatever, or Marcel Sabitzer is out for months. Then it's getting tough. But then again, I don't know how confident one would have been with Pascal Groß being an automatic starter for large spells of the rest of the season. So in all those terms, I think they saw an opportunity to get some money for a player they weren't going to extend beyond the summer. Obviously also in terms of, cutting the wage bill a little bit for the rest of the season. And because he's a valued member of the squad in terms of his personality and also his experience and age, they obliged with his wishes. And that is that. Personally, I would probably sign someone, but seeing as Niko Kovac and Sebastian Kehl have come out so definitely stating that they won't, I guess it's kind of pointless to, ruminate over that.
Matthias, how do you evaluate the transfer overall, bringing in Pascal Groß? And, we can obviously talk about, his influence in Dortmund still managing to reach the Champions League in the last stretch of last season. I think he certainly had a role to play in that with the assists that he provided. But still, overall, what are your thoughts on the signing overall in terms of squad planning? And maybe, long-term view, was he the right guy for the right time, etc., etc.? What are your thoughts on this transfer overall that Dortmund made?
So, first of all, getting $2 million for a 34-year-old whose legs are shot and who barely featured for you, I think is totally fine. And moving the wages off, I don't have an issue with it. It's a bit of a shame because I like Pascal Groß, as a person, kind of a thing. I think he was vital last season. Without his contributions, Dortmund wouldn't have made the Champions League. He was, he had to fill in a few times also at right back position, which I want to say is where he started at Ingolstadt, if I remember correctly, because he played right back. I know he played right back for Brighton a few times. But anyway, I think it was a good decision to bring in Pascal Groß, a German player who was playing for the national team at the time, even though I agree with Lars that ship has sailed. I don't foresee that in his future anymore. He brought some stability into a central midfield that was lacking that. I think players around him grew, and also the younger players, because there are a lot of young players, in their early 20s and even younger, that could benefit from him, watching him, seeing his play style, his playmaking ability, his passing ability, his consistency, and his calm demeanor. All of that, I think, played a positive role overall in his time at Dortmund. So, no, I would definitely classify this as a good, always short-term transfer, because it's not like he was 25 when he came. So he was already an over-the-hill, so to speak, player brought in for specific reasons. I think he fulfilled those reasons, and then him to move back to Brighton where he feels really at home. And like Lars said, the possibility maybe down the road to go into coaching, which I think he would probably be quite good at. I think overall it was a good transfer, and also a good transfer out for Dortmund and Pascal Groß.
Yeah, certainly managed to find the right off-ramp. We can leave it at that. I personally also think that it was a decent transfer to make, in terms of stability, also leadership in the locker room, and, the things you just mentioned. Certainly of value. I also just enjoyed him as a player. I liked the trickery. He had some really great Hollywood passes, some amazing crosses that will certainly be missed. But, already in the friendly, at the season's opening, if you want to call it that, he did not quite shine with his athleticism. I think Juventus had a couple of transition moments where they just left Pascal Groß in the dust, and I started to really worry about his legs. And unfortunately, as the season went on, that has not really improved. So Lars, I don't know how much you have the finger on the pulse on Borussia Dortmund's youth talents, but some people have speculated if Moussa Kaba is already a guy that can sort of slot into the Pascal Groß role of being sort of in and around the team and get maybe a few minutes that he would have gotten. I don't know if you have an answer to that question or not.
I mean, outside of them both being central midfielders, they don't really have anything in common. I mean, Kaba is more defensive-minded, 16 years old. I guess already athletically more imposing. He has very decent size. I think in a past age he would probably have been a centre half. But they're currently still in the training camp in Marbella, and that's the first exposure Kaba has had to the first team and vice versa. So I believe it when I see it. Let's put it like that. Especially considering they are somewhat conservative with their approach with young players. I think Kaba is well suited to remaining in the under-23s where Matisse Albert and Samuel Ignacio are now playing as well. So he has two, let's say, stable mates with a view to maybe progressing to the first team in the summer, because then there's going to be a bit more of a ramp-up period with a longer training camp, a tour to Asia, I believe, is this time around, and maybe next season, as well as Justin Lerma, who's coming over from Ecuador in the summer. So maybe something to look forward to in that regard. But I don't really foresee Kaba getting any meaningful minutes in the rest of the season. I mean, unless obviously the injury bug that Dortmund have avoided so far, maybe that comes back at some point, or maybe, match day 34, nothing to play for because they've already sealed Champions League football. Maybe Kovac gives out some minutes, but I kind of doubt all of that.
Yeah, I mean, Kovac was talking about how it would be much easier to play and integrate young players if Dortmund were like 3-0, 4-0 up in a game, basically. So apparently, if you're 18 or younger, you will only get garbage time minutes. If that, I mean, the most prominent example of where that didn't happen, for example, is the the win against Villarreal, where Dortmund were 3-0 up, I think, with a good half hour to go, and Villarreal were one man down, and the players that came on were Pascal Groß and Emre Can. So not exactly the youngsters there. But yeah, speaking of youngsters, the 19-year-old Cole Campbell has left Borussia Dortmund for a loan for now to TSG Hoffenheim, 1.5 million euro loan fee, and reported 10 million euro buy option for Hoffenheim. Matthias, since Cole Campbell is American and you too are American, why not cater this question to you? Do you think this is a good move for Dortmund, or would you interpret this as another proverbial L, as Dortmund have not really managed to carve out minutes for a talent like Cole Campbell?
I think a loan move, like if it would have been a fixed transfer guarantee, then I think that would have been maybe a little bit too soon. I think sending him out on loan, and I know there's a transfer buy option for Hoffenheim, at least I think there is, if I remember reading that.
Around 10 million.
Exactly. I think that's a good thing to have out there. Kind of see more playing time. He needs more playing time. He obviously was definitely not going to get that at Dortmund, and I can kind of see why. I think at Hoffenheim he will get that playing time, and then you'll see if he's able to. If you're able to see something, I mean, if you think back to when Gio Reyna was sent out on loan to Nottingham, and he really did nothing. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, so my opinion on him was right. And and it's been proven right ever since. So I think, I don't have an issue with it. Having him just sit at Dortmund and maybe getting spot minutes in trash time or anything like that, or garbage time for the rest of the season wouldn't have done him or the club any good. I think this is a way to see, is he actually worth it or not? And then you make a decision based upon that. So I'm okay with it. Yes, there's some concerns as far as depth go in the squad, but not necessarily at his position.
Yeah, Lars, what's your opinion on that? Maybe we can sort of transition in the potential move talk, since Duranville might also be out for a loan move.
I mean, the first thing that I want to kind of point out is that I'm not so sure he's going to get the minutes you are talking about at Hoffenheim, because that's a pretty solid team, especially offensively. And the talk is basically that he's going to replace Basumana Touré, who's currently starring for, is it Ivory Coast, at AFCON, who's probably leaving in the summer. So it's basically a wait-and-see deal for Hoffenheim as well. So I would be shocked if Cole Campbell suddenly turned from what he was at Dortmund to a nigh-on full-time starter for a decent Bundesliga side like Hoffenheim. So in those terms, it's actually a pretty strong deal for Dortmund, getting both a significant 7-figure fee for the loan, and then also I think the 10 million is more for the entire package, so you can assume it's going to be more like 7 million for the buyout and then maybe some bonuses on top. But that's still pretty good money for a player who has then done absolutely nothing at the senior level so far, who's played one game, I think, in the Champions League this season, right? Or maybe the Cup, I don't remember. And who's also only played twice for Dortmund's under-23, so he's basically completely unproven this season. Obviously, that was also down to the under-20 World Cup for the USA. And lest we forget, I think we talked about this in our final episode before Christmas. There are serious doubts about his, professionalism is probably not a word, but seeing as this is the Automatism podcast, or used to be anyway, we can probably talk about professionalism because there are certain attitude concerns with Campbell. I think most of our listeners will probably have read about some of those things by now, but generally speaking, I think there wasn't really a pathway for Cole Campbell to become what he might be able to become elsewhere at Dortmund. So getting him a change of scenery and also a bit of money for Dortmund makes a decent amount of sense. And the same, I would say, would be true if Duranville went on a dry loan somewhere. I think there are reports about interest from Anderlecht and Sevilla. Anderlecht obviously being the club where he debuted at, I think, 16 under Vincent Kompany. I definitely wouldn't want to, relinquish all my control over Duranville because I think he's a much more talented player than Cole Campbell. Probably much more talented than most players at Borussia Dortmund right now, but just hasn't been able to stay healthy. There are also some concerns about his attitude, but I think the overriding talent is so big that maybe you can overlook them to a certain degree, but Duranville desperately needs A, to stay healthy for a prolonged period of time, and B, playing time, and that's not going to come at Dortmund, unless, of course, there are so many injuries as talked about earlier. So it makes perfect sense for Duranville to go somewhere on loan. There was talk earlier in autumn about Werder Bremen, which I think would be an almost ideal candidate for such a thing because you can still learn, about the Bundesliga while playing more, but it seems that's not going to happen. So it's probably a loan in a different country, and those always carry risks. I think the success rate of winter loans across leagues is pretty low. I mean, one example has already been mentioned by Matthias in Gio Reyna at Nottingham, which at the time felt like a bad destination for a lone player and proved to be so. So we have to kind of cross our fingers that they find a better solution for Duranville.
Yeah, I mean, really his biggest problem is staying healthy, right? Whether his body is actually made for professional sport. I mean, he's still relatively young and there are growth spurts and all these things that can really mess with, your muscular composition and all these kind of things. And obviously, I mean, in the Club World Cup where he picked up the injury, he was just shoved to the ground and picked up a shoulder injury. So it appears as though he's made a little bit out of glass. Hopefully that is something he can overcome, because I think we all saw his talents. I mean, I think his marquee performance so far is the one in the Champions League match in a 3-1 win against Barcelona, where Dortmund crashed out of the Champions League, if you will, but still a very good game, probably one of the highlights of the previous season, and Duranville played really well in that. So yeah, I'll be honest, I really wish we would just play him more and try to develop him a little bit more in the in this Rückrunde, if you will. But like you both just factually stated, he's just not going to get that playing time unless, of course, he has injury luck in quotation marks, where Adeyemi, Bayer, and so on pick up injuries. Then maybe we'll see more of Duranville. But yeah, right now it just doesn't seem that way. But it's sport and things can change very quickly. So we are all sort of in a holding pattern in terms of moves. Sebastian Kehl said that it's still very early in January, so he doesn't feel rushed as of right now. And we're also having the entire talk about Nico Schlotterbeck's contract extension. We're having speculations whether Emre Can will get a new deal, Julian Brandt get a new deal. I think the only one who's really not going to get a new deal is Niklas Süle. So we'll see about that. And of course, we also have to wait and see if the new Chelsea manager, I think he was revealed today or yesterday, although I already forgot his name, whether he likes Anselmino, because in theory Chelsea also have the option to get him back to Chelsea in this winter transfer. So a lot of things are happening or not happening. Matthias, what is your, let's say, general vibe right now in this transfer window? Do you feel like Dortmund should be clamoring for new players, or do you feel like the analysis of Dortmund's front office that they are in say, steady waters and don't necessarily need to do something? Do you find that more of a correct take? Where are you in all of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I read on Transfermarkt that this is the first winter in 4 seasons that Dortmund are not proposing to bring in any players. And when you look at the squad right now, kind of top to bottom, and the formation that and the style that Niko Kovac wants to play, overall, Dortmund are 2-ish deep in all positions. And if everyone is healthy, well, who are you going to bring in, kind of a thing, you know, like who's going to take up whose spot? And you have to kind of go from a position of everyone's healthy, what does the squad look like? Yeah, I mean, it got super thin when all center backs were out, except for one. But if they're all healthy, well, who are you going to bring in? Who are you going to sit then? And who would you even want to sit in a situation like that? I still feel like there should be something on the left side of defense or left side of the team a little bit. I feel like that's probably one of the weaker spots right now overall. But I can understand not wanting to bring in a bunch of players now, especially if you're not really seeing that you want to move out, or you're in the fear of moving out any key players. I mean, the players we talked about so far, whether it's Duranville, Campbell, or Pascal Gross, they're not key players. You know, those are players that weren't really going to get much time, if any time at all. So you don't really need to replace them. I think the bigger planning is for the summer. And that's where, you know, like discussions around Schlotterbeck, Emre Can, and Julian Brandt, that's really where the focus is. And I can't fault the front office from making that the priority versus bringing someone in right now where you would struggle to know where exactly you'd even need to put them, to be honest.
Yeah, Lars, what is your temperature check? First of all, maybe do you want to see anyone come in, and if so, on what position? I mean, the let's say Daniel Svensson backup is certainly a very valid point to make of getting someone there. I don't know how much of a role Almogera Kaba will play, if any. So, what's your take? Do you feel like, I mean, there were some exciting rumors for a second. If Dortmund were to get Oscar Bob, which obviously is not the case, that's something that would intrigue me. But, what are your thoughts?
I think Daniel Svensson can be backed up by enough players. Be that Riasson, I think Couture could probably play on the left side as well. Maxi Bayer, Benzipaini. This would be like the thing, okay, if they can find someone who's clearly better, sure, go ahead. But just to add another body there, I don't think that's necessary. I already mentioned, I think they could do with someone else in defensive midfield or central midfield, because they are obviously putting a lot of eggs in the Bellingham basket. But I guess that's why they bought him for 30 million in the summer. So I'm pretty okay with them not signing anyone unless, a great opportunity would show itself, like Oscar Bob would have been one of those. But I think the overall package being in the realm of 70 million euros was prohibitive, to say the least. So I think it makes perfect sense to go with the team that has done really well this season. I think we've talked about this a number of times already, that I don't really understand why there's so much talk about how Dortmund are playing when their results are what they are. I mean, they've lost to Bayern, Manchester City, and Leverkusen in the cup. Obviously, the cup defeat hurts the most probably, but when you come out of a very congested part of your season with 3 defeats against 3 very good teams, like, that's pretty much an okay return for Borussia Dortmund. So I don't see major needs. I don't see major opportunities providing themselves. So unless something else happens, like if Liam Rossinior, he was the new Chelsea coach, if he were to recall Aaron Anselmino, then maybe you look at bringing in a center half, especially considering the turnover that is to be expected in the summer. But I'm pretty confident that nothing of that significance is going to happen, and I'm okay with it. Basically, Matthias laid it out just the same as Sebastian Kehl has. Why would we sign someone when, it's unlikely that we are going to get anyone who's actually improving us, and just signing a body to have one, doesn't make sense. And if we look at the past few seasons, they always reacted in the winter because they made too many mistakes in the summer, basically, or had a terrible first half of the season up to that point. Case in point, last season when signing Svensson and to a lesser extent Chukwuemeka kind of turned their season around, at least to an extent down to those two transfers. I don't see any glaring holes where something like that could be repeated this season.
Yeah, I mean, if Anselmino goes, I'm also fine if you say, okay, we're this time just trusting Filippo Mane to play in these minutes, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. I don't know, but when we talk so much about youth development, and so yeah, obviously Anselmino is someone who's playing really well. I think he is on the sheet if you talk about Dortmund's best center back lineup. I think in my book right now it's Schlotterbeck, Anton, and Anselmino. I don't know if you guys have different calculations. I mean, Niklas Süle did play really well against Gladbach, of course, but still I'm a fan of Anselmino, honestly. So hopefully that could be a center back 3 that we will see next season. But of course that all hinges upon, well, not all. Obviously, Dortmund also would have to buy Anselmino, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but it certainly hinges upon the Schlotterbeck contract extension. Matthias, temperature check on that. Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's not going to happen? What's your current feel for that?
I think you asked that question a few weeks ago, and I gave a 50+1 answer. 50% +1 in Dortmund's favor. And at this point, I don't have any change to that. I mean, this was going to be something that was going to take a long time, no matter what. And I don't see that changing. I could see the Schlotterbeck side kind of want to see how the second half of the season starts off. I think Dortmund are in an incredibly strong position to have a decent season, much safer than last season, less turbulent. And I think he also wants to see what the front office is planning to next season to be more serious in the Bundesliga. And now, granted, part of that is also that Bayern are just flying this year. So, but yeah, I'm still sticking to my 50+1 in Dortmund's favor right now, but who knows, man? Transfers get weird, contracts extensions get weird, but I could see the Schlotterbeck camp giving it a wait and see approach, and Dortmund side being a little more antsy to get this done. So yeah, I don't foresee any news before like February or March timeframe right now, to be honest.
Much. Last, what is your ETA on that? Do you think it's gonna happen, or do you think it's not gonna happen? What's your feel?
Happen as in sign an extension, or they tell us he won't? I mean, I don't know that they will tell us if he won't. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone at Dortmund kind of thought at some point that it was basically automatic because Schlotterbeck likes it here so much and, identifies with the club and, his position with the fans and all that. But I personally got the feeling over the first half of the season, and it was an ever-growing feeling that, things aren't looking particularly good for Dortmund in the Schlotterbeck regard. I'm pretty sure he and his agent are, sending out feelers, looking what other options might be out there. I think we can all assume that FC Bayern would be very interested in signing him, regardless of Upamecano's contract extension, because, they like getting the best players from Germany. And, you need quite a few center halves to get through these modern seasons with, 60, 70 matches or whatever it is. I'm also pretty confident that he would have no problem finding a decent suitor in England, maybe Barcelona, Real Madrid. So it's a very difficult decision to make for him because he's also not super young anymore. I mean, he turned 26 early December, so he's been around the block at least a little bit, and he's not won anything with Borussia Dortmund. Obviously, he came close twice, but then again, he also came close with SC Freiburg, so who lost the cup final when he missed a penalty, if memory serves, against Leipzig. My gut feeling right now is I don't think he's going to extend. I think we are looking at a massive upheaval in the summer, because I would also assume that Guirassy is leaving and maybe Adeyemi as well. So given that, I don't think there is an ETA for a positive decision, and I don't know that they are going to tell us, hey, we talked, we tried, and we are going to sell Nico Schlotterbeck, because that kind of, weakens their position. But obviously we can all assume if there's no extension, from now until the end of the season, he's gone, because I can't fathom a scenario in which Dortmund are willing to forgo, 50, 60 million in transfer fees for a player who's going to leave on a free otherwise next season.
My prediction is that we will have an announcement that Nico Schlotterbeck joins Bayern on February 23rd. That would be the Monday before Dortmund play against Bayern. This is just
can I just ask Stefan how that is possible? Because he doesn't have a release clause, and his contract isn't running out this summer. So Bayern,
not officially,
Bayern have no control over this.
But the Bild Zeitung will have a nice big headline. Is what I'm foreseeing. Just a hunch. But this is, I don't know, my outlook, honestly, like you said, is also not very, very positive. Especially, I watched the interview with Lena Kassel on Prime, where he talked about, really wanting to have something in his hands, meaning silverware. And Dortmund, we came close and whatnot, but it doesn't really feel like Dortmund can give the title winning perspective if that's the main argument you have to make. I'll be honest, I'm not seeing it right now how Dortmund have the medium-term capabilities of leapfrogging Bayern for maybe even one season. It just doesn't feel that way at all right now. And let's be honest, Dortmund's story right now with Niko Kovac is also not the most exciting one. So it's a tough sell. I think if Dortmund really want to show a player like Niko Kovac, like Nico Schlotterbeck, Jesus Christ, a perspective that's really enticing, I think they're going to struggle with that. So that's just my take. Also really hope they're not extending Can and Brandt, and when you talk about a big transition or upheaval in the summer, I think that really is what's going to happen to Matthias. Would you take Emre Can? I think we've already discussed that, but on a, let's say, much lower salary, because right now he is making a ridiculous amount of money for the performance that he's putting in.
Oh, yeah, he definitely would have to restructure his contract for there even to be any type of discussion to be had. I mean, if there's not a massive restructuring and a significantly lowering of the wage, then you're going to have to sell him, because it would be stupid to do otherwise. You can invest that money in much better ways in other younger players with a better long-term perspective with the club.
Yeah, well, I hope that Dortmund will have a few more creative ideas. I mean, our next opponent, they've certainly made a few moves already during this winter transfer window. And I guess we can talk about that match on Friday. The Hinrunde is actually still ongoing, so Dortmund will have their first league match against Eintracht Frankfurt. Is of course on the road. A Friday night game. Stakes, I would say, like not the very highest, but certainly a team that you want to keep at bay. Frankfurt right now are in 7th place, and they are quite a decent amount behind Dortmund. They have 25 points to Dortmund's 32. So Frankfurt certainly have a little bit more pressure than Dortmund do at this point, because I believe that Frankfurt too would really love to come back into the Champions League places. But with the way Leipzig and Leverkusen are playing, it's certainly not going to be easy for either Stuttgart, Frankfurt, or if you want to lump Hoffenheim in there, or, who I believe will probably still drop off a little. But I think Frankfurt and Stuttgart certainly have the ambition to manage a top 4 finish. So Matthias, we just talked about eggs being in the Joe Bellingham basket, but unfortunately he is still suspended in this game. There's no Pascal Groß, so I assume we will have a Mecha Sabitzer double pivot. Any other things? We already talked about Gregor Kobel missing the final days of the training camp and potentially being out sick. So what's your anticipation ahead of what is a relatively big clash?
Yeah, it's pretty big. I would say, it's important for Dortmund to have a mini cushion at position number 2 in the table. I'd say it's huge for Eintracht Frankfurt, who they are not happy with their season so far. They can't be. Their ambitions were much higher. And right now they've been, I'd say, struggling more than they expected, more than I expected. With that being said, they're going to be very motivated and very dangerous accordingly. You look at Dortmund, what hasn't changed? What hasn't changed? The fact that Dortmund are going to kind of have to throw together some kind of center back trio. Probably, again, Schlotterbeck, Süle, Can as your back 3, because you don't have any other central defenders. I mean, Filippo Mane, but I don't know that he'll necessarily see the pitch. I think he'll see the bench, because otherwise don't have enough players to put on the bench defensively, because everyone else is injured or at the Africa Cup of Nations. So with that being said, this is going to be a very dangerous match for Dortmund. Again, limit the stupid stuff, and I think you'll do all right against a very dangerous Eintracht Frankfurt side, albeit away from home. But Frankfurt is also the kind of team that can force you to make bad decisions and mistakes. And so I think that'll be the key for Dortmund, is limiting those possession errors and build up and transitional errors in your back 3 and your final third. And I think you can do well, especially because I do expect Frankfurt to come at Dortmund, so that'll open up spaces for counterattacks, which of course gives Dortmund some leverage for their strengths and speed, especially if someone like Adeyemi's in there and you throw in Fabio Silva as well, who's got some speed, Maxi Bayer. So I do not anticipate this being a boring match at all. I anticipate this being a very nervous match to watch for both sets of fans. Probably relatively topsy-turvy at times, and I would be utterly shocked if this is a 0-0 or a 1-0 or a 1-1 overall match. I do expect goals, and I expect plenty of goal-scoring action, or at least in front of goal action, which will make it a very interesting match.
I really can't wait what the Karim Adeyemi subplot will be, because there's probably going to be one. Lars, what do you expect from Dortmund? Obviously, they had a little bit of a training camp, but as Niko Kovac said, that was more of a normal training week. I don't expect Dortmund to have a tactical overhaul going into the second half of the season. So Is it going to be more of the same? Is it going to be a game where Dortmund try to, play more on a counter-attack while Frankfurt has more possession? I don't have the possession stats from the cup match, but I feel like that Frankfurt were sort of more in control of the game while it was still very even, but certainly had more of the ball. So what do you expect this time around?
First of all, a slight correction, Waldemar Anton is available. Should be good for the starting 11.
Oh,
so,
okay. Sorry about that.
So the only question is Can versus Süle, I would presume, because Anton and Schlotterbeck are, unquestionable starters. And I kind of the cup game is obviously, a one-off because it's a knockout game. Dortmund started without Guirassy and Silva. They didn't play with a recognizable striker. I somewhat doubt that that's going to be the case on Friday because it's a Bundesliga game. Frankfurt have conceded the most goals in the league, despite being, still up there in terms of, qualifying for a European spot. So that would lend itself to Matthias's theory of a lot of goal mount action, let's say. Then obviously we have the cup game, which was quite different. I think Dortmund scored with their one very good chance from open play when Brandt scored the equalizer. I think there was not too much else going for Dortmund, but they also kind of defended well and it felt like they were sort of playing for extra time and then penalties. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was my impression in the stadium on that evening. The most interesting aspect to me is that Frankfurt have completely overhauled their attacking department in the winter, which is very unusual. They've signed Younes Ebnou-Talib of Elversberg, who was the leading goal scorer in the second division, a local boy who's going to make his debut presumably on Friday in the Bundesliga. He very recently, as in less than 2 years ago, I think, still played for FC Gießen in the Regionalliga. So he's a bit of an unknown for Dortmund, I'm sure, because they wouldn't have had any reason to scout as for Elversberg too intensely so far this season. They are also in the process of signing Arnaud Kalimuendo, who has been linked with Frankfurt for at least 2 or 3 transfer windows, but stupidly went to Nottingham Forest in the summer. He's going to be loaned out. They also signed from Hoffenheim's second team. Don't ask me to pronounce his name because it has like 60 characters. Apparently the best player of the third division so far this season, a young winger. So it's going to be a different Frankfurt side than what we've seen. They're also missing Skiri, who is on AFCON duty, or maybe I don't even know if Tunisia is still in the tournament. And Fares Chaibi, as Bensebaini qualified for the quarterfinals with Algeria. So Jonathan Burkhardt is still injured, which is one of the main reasons why they signed so many attacking players. Elie Wahi has been loaned out to OGC Nice.
Nice.
So it's, despite them already meeting this season, it's going to feel somewhat different. And I think if, I go by my gut feeling, it's going to be not so much like the cup game, which was cagey and obviously nobody wanted to make the decisive mistake, and more so like the last few Bundesliga duels between these two clubs, because they were always quite eventful. I think, wasn't it last season when Omar Mamouche, said goodbye before his move to Manchester City? I think that was also an early January game, or a January game, and one of the last of Nuri Sahin in charge. So that's something nice to remember.
Yeah, and of course, Dortmund did manage to beat Frankfurt in the first game of last season, where it wasn't necessarily deserved, but Jamie Gittins then came on and decided the game. I don't know if we'll have a repeat like that this time around. So yeah, I'm a little curious if we'll have Chukwuemeka starting or Julian Brandt, and I just wonder in general sort of how Niko Kovac and his training staff or coaching staff is looking at this Dortmund squad right now and sort of best 11, because right now, I think you have pretty much everyone available to form that 11 if you want. So apart from Anselmino, of course, who is still injured as far as I know. But I think we will see without Joe Bellingham still what the strongest team is in their minds, apart from those two players. So intrigued to see if Fabio Silva will make a run out, probably not. And of course, if Serhou Guirassy can find back to form somehow, because I think if there's one thing that Dortmund really desperately need is for Guirassy to be more efficient in front of target. I mean, it's been not the best attacking output from Dortmund. I mean, they have scored 26 goals, which is 6th best in the league. Their expected goals is 23, so they're overperforming in that regard. And they are only ranking 14th in shots total toward goal with 176. So that's not a lot. And Dortmund, I think, need to improve, especially in the chance creation and shot creation metrics, if you will. And I wonder what they will figure out to do that, because with no players coming in, you obviously need to do that internally. But so far, I think that's just the Kovac approach. Like you said, Lars, Dortmund are, really well defensively. They have only conceded 12 goals, which is of course only one less than Bayern Munich, and that is certainly a good stat. Their expected goals against value on FBref is 14.6, so they're overperforming that a little bit too. But Kobel also leading the league in clean sheets with 8, and he has the highest save percentage of all goalkeepers in Bundesliga. So I think Kicker just ranked him as the best Bundesliga goalkeeper as well. So I think he is also a bit of a difference maker. So we'll see if he is going to play or not. But yeah, if we give a general outlook on what the homework is for the coaching staff, I think is remaining as defensively solid as they are right now, and adding more firepower up front, obviously internally. But if we'll have a similar reaction, and I don't know if we will, for Dortmund to play much better in the second half of the season or after the turn of the year, then this should be fun, right? But Matthias, can we expect that, or do you think we're going to have more of the same relative for the rest of this season?
Well, I do think, I leaning into my optimistic side, I think it's more fun than not for the rest of the season. And I think not having the DFB Pokal in there, which, sucks, but on the other hand, does give more chance for fresh legs and momentum both in the league, and who knows what kind of surprises are possible in the Champions League. I choose to remain optimistic that we're going to have a fun second half of the season, pushing the team ahead of Borussia Dortmund and fighting off the ones that are just below. And so, I'm looking forward to the second half of the season for sure.
Yeah, Lars, your general outlook. Do you think we're going to have an uptick because this team just gels more? Or do you think it's going to be a downturn or stagnation?
Once again, how much is there to uptick, if that's a word? Like, what are we?
There is a lot. I think there's a lot
in terms of results. What are we expecting? Like, they are not going to bypass FC Bayern in the Bundesliga. They're already out of the cup and in the Champions League. Let's see how they fare against Tottenham and Inter, and then we can talk about pretty much guaranteed knockout opponents. But like, the line of questioning once again kind of feeds my point that I don't understand the general lack of satisfaction with what they've done so far this season, because I'm perfectly content with what they've done. So if it's stagnation, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, but like I said, Dortmund usually have a better second half of the season than first half of the season. So my question was simply, are they gonna be able to repeat that? And I mean, Dortmund do lead the league in draws with 5 draws. So maybe they can turn a couple of games that would have resulted in draws into wins as well. And I'm pretty sure they can be a little bit more easy on the eye in terms of playing football. So maybe we'll just see a bit of a development there. But yeah, I personally don't know. I'm curious to see, the first 2 games of January against Frankfurt and Bremen, since it's right off an englische Woche. So the Bremen game will be on Tuesday evening, before the second half of the season officially starts then on Saturday at home against St. Pauli. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how these 2 games go, and if we have any surprises. But I think overall it's just going to be more of the same, and I don't think there are going to be many surprises. Also, I don't think we will be surprised in new transfers, but maybe next week when we speak, we will have more to report. But I am afraid we're not going to have to do that. So, you two, I want to thank you very much for coming on, and we will, I think, speak probably after the Werder Bremen game to recap that sort of week, and hopefully have 2 wins to discuss. And everyone out there, once again, Happy New Year, even though it's too late to say that now, according to Larry David, and enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.